everyone, and welcome to The Hash, your daily beat on crypto and culture. My name is Naomi Brockwell, and we have on the show today Ben Powers, Jen Sanasie, Zack Seward, and filling in for Will Foxley, we have Danny Nelson. Welcome to the show, Danny, and everyone else. And I'm going to throw this straight to Danny, I believe, talking about Elon Musk. So what's the news there that everyone is talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's talking about it. This is probably the biggest news story in recent memory. You know, just 3 months after Tesla announced it's going to begin accepting Bitcoin as payment for cars, it's putting a stop to that over environmental concerns. And in a tweet statement, Elon said last night that it's just not worth the trouble, or not worth the cost of supporting a cryptocurrency that's so dependent, as he said, on fossil fuels and coal to work. So this obviously sent crypto Twitter and really the markets in general into a frenzy of selling. Bitcoin dropped all the way down to 46. Now it's around 50, but it's still off its highs. And it's got people thinking, where do we head from here? Is this going to be a turning point in the mining industry? That's probably my biggest question. I'm going to throw it over to you, Ben. What do you think about all this?
Cool. Whatever. Let's move on. Like I'm just kind of frustrated with this. It kind of shows that maybe Tesla could have used its in-house PR operation it disbanded at this point, because this really is a messaging battle at this point. You know, we talked about this before. We talked about this on Earth Day. The whole mining controversy is absolutely something we should be talking about. But again, I feel like the framing here is all wrong. Like everything costs energy. It's about how we assign value. Zack has disappeared somehow, and we're doing other things. But I just think that we really need to be, you know, looking at this from a different perspective. And in my mind, like, I don't think it's lovely when markets flip based on like Elon's tweets one way or the other. So my kind of thought process is like, cool, okay, let's move on. The market reacting to the extent that it has feels like a bit of an overreaction, but that's just a little bit of my perspective. Naomi, what do you got here? I see you kind of quaffing over there.
I'm going to add in here because I just think it's such a ridiculous amount of bollocks, and I want to highlight how much bollocks this is. So, I mean, he's talking about this like from a fossil fuels perspective, which is definitely on brand for Tesla. They talk a lot about that. But they're not selling their $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. Yeah. What I think this is that no one was using Bitcoin to buy Teslas. It requires a huge amount of training to get their staff on board with understanding how to use this. They need a good reason to stop this so the Bitcoin community doesn't like hate them entirely and say, well, he's giving up, whatever. And so he say, well, environmental concerns, you know, I just feel like, I mean, I live in a place where crypto is accepted everywhere. And even then you go into a store, and every store you go into, like 9 times out of 10, you'll get someone who's never used the system before. And it takes like 5 minutes, and the people behind you are kind of like annoyed at you for holding up time. Like it takes a lot of time to train people about how to use these systems if they haven't used it. So I understand that this is going to be cumbersome for Tesla to accept Bitcoin. And from what we could tell, like when we reported them this on the show, like it was hard to get any information about like, was this being used? Who was using it? Like, has anyone been trained to have data? Like, it just seemed really weird. So it's not surprising to me that now Tesla has done a backflip and saying we're not involved. But also the point when they're talking about like, oh, it's bad because of coal and electricity. How are Tesla vehicles powered? They're powered by electricity. It's the same electricity grid that's used to power Bitcoin miners. Only Bitcoin miners go to where the electricity is cheapest and generally more renewable, like when there's excess electricity, when you can't fit all the electricity in the grid. And so, you know, I just think it's like a kind of a hypocritical thing that's definitely coming from a PR moment. You know, they wanted a good excuse to opt out. They have it. The most interesting thing about this is that they said they're going to look at other cryptocurrencies. Again, because they framed this as environmental concerns, maybe this is their way of not being hated by the Bitcoin community. But it is interesting to me that they are looking at other cryptos. So that was a big rant. Jen, I'm going to throw this to you.
I just wanted to read some of my favorite responses to the tweet, and I have to get my glasses on for this because it's just like really exciting for me.
It's legit now. This is how you know.
I know, right? Peter Schiff responded with an eggplant emoji, which I thought was hilarious. Lolly, I won't read the whole statement, but said Lolly has officially suspended buying Teslas. We're deeply concerned about the CEO's inability to understand that Bitcoin is largely mined with renewable energy. And then Michael Saylor added in some remarks of his own. So I just thought the general response on crypto Twitter was really hilarious and reflective of all the points you just kind of brought up there, Naomi. That's what stood out to me.
Yeah, and I'm thinking there's been a whole bunch of conspiracy theories flowing around because is it really the environmental reasons that Tesla is backing out now? I mean, the issues with Bitcoin, these are not new. They've been around for a very long time, and if you're a gigantic corporate and you're throwing money, $1.5 billion into something, one would expect you to do your due diligence beforehand. So. It could be that Tesla's moving away from Bitcoin to get away from the issues that it might be causing on their balance sheet, because they're not able to count Bitcoin that's taken from sales as revenue. They have to keep it as an I don't know the exact term, but they got to keep it somewhere else on their balance sheet, which does not look so good. So this could be cover. Who knows? But Zach, what do you think?
I think it's kind of weird. The payments angle was always sort of side course to the main event of the big old Bitcoin treasury investment. And they also stated yesterday that they weren't going to sell any of that investment. They tested the liquidity of the market famously not long ago and sold, I think, 272 million worth of their 1.5 billion Bitcoin war chest not long ago. But it seems odd that, I don't know. It just seems like sort of an odd. They're trying to thread the needle here in terms of signaling, but really, the payments use case was always sort of a bit unproven on the Bitcoin side of what they've done in these last few months. So I don't know. I just thought that was a bit odd. I'll throw that to you, Naomi. I saw your hand go up on that point.
Yeah. So Danny, you brought up a great point about how it looks on their balance sheet. So the way businesses have to account for cryptocurrency is kind of interesting in that they have to depreciate it down when the value drops, but there's no appreciation when it goes up. So it just kind of brings the value down, which doesn't look good for companies. So that may, as you said, be a reason why they don't want it on their balance sheet. And on the other side of things, when they have money coming in, that's treated as property by the IRS. So it does have to go on like a property side of their balance sheet. So it is very interesting the way that taxes are kind of coming in here and hurting their ability potentially to accept Bitcoin. But let's change track here.
All right, let's change track. Yesterday was freaking crazy. Not only did Elon Musk go out and say that Tesla was over Bitcoin payments, the big news of the day yesterday was Vitalik Buterin, the Ethereum co-founder, really dunking on some meme coin projects. It was quite interesting to see. So the story here is that, there's all these sort of like Dogecoin imitators, chief among them being Shiba Inu coin. The creators of Shiba Inu coin thought it'd be really cool if they could say that half of their token supply was in a Vitalik wallet. So they sent him trillions of these tokens, $8 billion worth or something like that. Starting yesterday, Vitalik said, I'm getting rid of these tokens. I'm going to donate them to good causes, or I'm going to otherwise move them. That initially caused the price of SHIB and some of these meme coins to drop. And it was just this really sort of just strange, bizarre moment of an open financial system in action, right? These are permissionless networks. He was given billions of dollars in free money, and it was up to him to do whatever the hell he wanted with that. And what he did was just started unloading it. Some to very notable causes, very positive causes, such as the Indian COVID Relief Fund. But I don't know. I thought this thing was just really crazy yesterday, really captivated the attention of industry observers. I'll throw this to you, Naomi. I mean, when you saw Vitalik do this yesterday, what was your initial thought as to the potential why there?
So it's interesting. There's a little bit more context to it in that the developers of these coins wanted to basically burn half the tokens. And there's no way to really verify that you've burnt it, because if you send it to a bad address, then how do you know someone doesn't have the key to that address? So they thought sending it to Vitalik was as good as burnt. He's never going to touch it. He's going to ignore this. He's not even going to deal with these shit coins. And so they sent it there, and Vitalik's like, actually, gonna give it all away. So it kind of like threw their plan out. But I just want to talk about some of the causes that they gave to. So 1,000 ETH and all Elon tokens to the Methuselah Foundation. a fantastic organization, guys. Aubrey de Grey is a co-founder, famous longevity expert and scientist. And so what they're doing with trying to cure a lot of the aging-related diseases that we have that are hurting so many people, like billions of people, and essentially almost all of us if you don't die from other causes. I mean, I think it's just a fantastic cause. So what's that, like $4 billion or something? And then you got Miri, another fantastic organization. So they do like AI safety. They're kind of like looking at ethics around AI, making sure that when you're developing AI, it's like not going to kill humans. Like just a really awesome community. Obviously, Vitalik's a big part of the rationalist community, so that makes a lot of sense. You've got the crypto relief fund that you mentioned, Zack, Charter Cities. I mean, these are all such good organizations. Like I was so happy to read this, and yet he got a lot of flack. Like, does someone want to go into some of the flack and the surprising response that he got for selling these? Danny, what do you got there?
Absolutely. I think my favorite comment on Twitter yesterday was Vitalik woke up and chose violence because he absolutely created the market. And honestly, it has me wondering, so all of yesterday's news, I think this might be the end of the Dogecoin moment, with Elon kind of giving up his mantle. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that, a related topic. Elon giving up his mantle as chief as chief breathless crypto pumper, to be sure. And with the Shiba Inu coin now in the trash, I'm really wondering if the market might have to revolve away from these meme coins.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think so.
Where there be memes, there be crypto. Generally,
Yeah, I think.
Yes, but the meme king has taken a step back. Never die, but will they maintain their dominance?
Maybe we'll see a new meme king rise from the ashes.
We'll have to find a new champion. Yeah, I mean, I think some of the comments about Vitalik sort of rugging these projects, rug pull in crypto parlance is like you sort of remove liquidity from the project, or you otherwise sort of dupe unsuspecting investors. I'm not sure that is necessarily entirely fair, but or whether or not this will necessarily cripple these tokens in the long term. Meme coins are sort of this like populism in crypto moment, and I think we're going to see more of it, despite Vitalik sort of taking a stand and shipping these things elsewhere without the projects knowing about it beforehand. But Ben, what's your take on that?
Yeah, sorry, sucks to suck, like if you give a person trillions of dollars in tokens, that's like they can do whatever they want. Like this isn't a rug pull. This is just like, you gave him this power and he's using it how he chooses, and he's using it for actual kind of good charitable causes, particularly COVID relief in India. I think that's totally important. Like these are joke coins, and people can use them how they please. I think the rug pull stuff is way overrated. This is decentralized finance, and if you make that choice, your choices have consequences. So that's kind of maybe my cynical take. Maybe I'm waking up today and choosing violence, but maybe that's just my take.
I feel so sorry for the people who get their investment advice on TikTok. I think a lot of people, again, that have this FOMO, and they saw everyone kind of pumping this up on TikTok, and they thought they could make a quick buck, and Vitalik woke up and chose violence. And I feel very, very sorry for those people, but they learned a lesson.
Well, we'll take a break on that note, and we'll go back into the land of Bitcoin. After the break, let's talk about Michael Saylor, that MicroStrategy guy. He just keeps buying that Bitcoin, man. We'll talk about that when we get back. Stick with us. It's The Hash.
Hello and welcome back to The Hash, where we bring you the latest and greatest in crypto and culture. Now, before I get into my story, I need to just address the elephant in the room. Zack, you disappeared for a short while earlier on in the show and were video bombed by Chris Giancarlo. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I didn't know that happened. I was gone.
It was an improvement.
You guys are seeing former CFTC chair Christian Carlo in the screen. That's crazy, man. Was he moving? Was he talking? Did anything happen?
He's hanging out.
This is CDTV. We got sources, you know.
That's crazy.
I was like,
crazy.
Did the control room just get real vicious and is Zack no longer on the show? Like, what did he say?
You're out of here, Zack.
You got rolled, Zack.
Yeah. All right. Anyway.
All right. Okay, let's move on to the next story. So MicroStrategy continues to buy Bitcoin. So they disclosed a $15 million buy today. This brings the total amount they've spent to $2.24 billion on Bitcoin. Now, if we do the math, it looks like the purchase was made before the Tesla announcement, which led their price to fall by 7%. So this wasn't a case of them buying the dip that we saw when Tesla announced that they would no longer be accepting Bitcoin. It just seems like they keep pouring in. We know Michael Saylor has a long strategy when it comes to the coin. I'm going to just throw this out to the group. What did you guys think when you saw this story this morning?
Well, when I woke up and saw this on my plate, I thought, oh damn, here we go again. This is really becoming a monthly occasion for MicroStrategy. They have this policy. We're going to do these occasional big buys. Maybe we're going to raise some debt to buy billions of dollars in crypto. But also, now for the third consecutive month, they've just gone out and bought about 15 million. So it's just a regular occurrence to remind the market, look, we think that that Bitcoin is a safer place to store our money than the dollar, or at least a better place in the long term. And we're going to do it consistently. It just so happens that it coincides with this really a big move by Tesla. And in that context, I guess it stands out as just another moment where Michael Saylor is looking around at the crowd and saying, this is where you got to be. This is the party. Bitcoin's where it's at. I don't know if everyone's going to be as receptive to that message as he might want it to be. But it's amazing to me that they continue to go out and keep buying more Bitcoin.
The news this morning really made me feel like it was a battle of the figureheads. You know, we have Elon saying Bitcoin is this huge climate liability. We have Michael Saylor, doubling down on Bitcoin. Zack, we've talked about figureheads in this space before. What did you take away from this?
Yeah, I mean, the timing is certainly interesting, right? You have Elon Musk seemingly taking a step back from his Bitcoin love affair, and you have Michael Saylor jumping into the breach and adding some Bitcoin to the balance sheet yet again. The timing may or may not be coincidental, but it is certainly interesting. You remember, it's kind of like a dream now, but you remember when these guys were talking on Twitter before Elon made the Tesla investment, and they were sort of comparing notes on how you do large Bitcoin buys. So the level of influencer status here is interesting to me, that Saylor sort of led this charge. Musk hopped on the bandwagon. Musk hopped off the bandwagon. Saylor's still there. I don't know. Just an interesting little character study in folks who make big, large wagers on Bitcoin. But yeah, Naomi, I know you have a thought. What do you got?
Yeah, so I mean, it's completely expected that he's going to keep buying Bitcoin because he's been regularly buying it in $15 million tranches since March. So, this idea of dollar cost averaging, where you buy the same amount in dollar values, and it's a way of kind of averaging out the prices across a larger period of time. So I predict that he's going to keep doing it, although how much debt can they leverage at their company in order to facilitate this? It's also interesting because he calls it his stacking treasury reserve policy. There's no stacking sats here. He's stacking Bitcoins. He's a Bitcoin stacking policy. Stacking sats is for people who can't afford a Bitcoin, and they put a little bit aside.
But when you've bought $1 billion of Bitcoin and now you're only buying 15 million, I mean, it's these
it's like a sat to hear. He's confused.
It's a
Saylor sats.
Yeah,
it's a Bitcoin.
He's chicken shit.
Yeah, no, exactly. He's stacking Michael Saylor sats, and I think he's going to continue to do so.
I think you've just coined a term there, Naomi.
It's funny.
That was definitely Danny.
Yesterday, sort of, I feel like yesterday blew this out of the water. But inflation is back, right? Inflation indicators are back, and for for sort of Saylor to seemingly be acting on some of that stuff. I mean, it's a long held belief of his that like inflation is going to deplete the value of his cash reserves, and so therefore he wants to park it into Bitcoin. But it's an interesting reminder of some of that inflation data having come out, I don't know, yesterday, the day before. An interesting reminder that people are still acting on that thesis when it comes to stashing like long-term assets and putting long-term value into Bitcoin. So trying to remember that the inflation thing is not going away anytime soon.
Absolutely. And regarding the timing with Elon Musk, so in his disclosure, it says that the average price was like $55,000. I think I remember. I can't see it now. Yeah, $55,387. Now, considering that since the news of Elon, it's like gone way down below that and only bounced up to like 50 again, it would suggest that this purchase did happen before the Elon news. But I think that, I do think that Michael Saylor is going to continue to purchase going forward. So I'm not sure that the Elon news is going to affect him either way.
Yeah, it's like, it's the midwit meme, which is the meme in crypto, right? There's the small brain and the big brain, and then there's the midwit, and the midwit is really worried about, like inter-day price movement, and the small brain and the big brain are just like buy at all costs. And that's sort of, I feel like Saylor is one of those extremes. But
which one?
Yeah.
Take a stand. Which one is he?
I'll go with large brain. I mean, the beauty of that meme is that they do the same thing. The large brain and the small brain does the same thing. And it's like midwit journalists like us who are like so fraught and we're crying. The tears are streaming down our face.
Small brain.
Over small things like that.
Always crying on this show.
Right
always crying. All right, let's change gears.
I'm going to cry some more and talk about this new pilot program that a bunch of banks are putting together. So the idea is that there are banks who have collaborated. The plan is to issue credit cards to people with no credit scores. Obviously, if you're a foreigner or you've never had a credit card or you don't have a credit score, it's very, very difficult to get access into that walled garden. And so the idea is that regulators ask banks to brainstorm how to make loans to people who have been locked out from getting them, and they've come up with this idea that they're going to share more data. So there's a lot to pack there. The idea is that you can garner information from someone's bank history, whether they've had overdraft loans, whether they've had checks that have been bounced or whatever. There are different things about their saving habits that can give you more information. You don't necessarily need a credit history. So Chase previously has piloted that program. Apparently, by just monitoring people's bank account habits, they were able to offer credit to 700,000 more people, which is substantial. And now the idea is, what if Chase and Wells Fargo and all of these banks shared data with each other, which is rare in banking. They generally silo their information, as we talked about yesterday, don't share it. But if they start sharing this, maybe we could get a more accurate representation of who is able to accept credit. Now, how does this relate to crypto? Well, crypto has already provided loans to people who have no credit history since all of this DeFi world has exploded. It is very easy to put crypto as collateral and get a loan in fiat. There are no barriers to entry, and there's no KYC. So it seems like the regulators and the banks' response to this is, give us more information. Give it to Equifax. They're so good with your data. We're going to share all the information. That's how we're going to have inclusion. I don't know. Some people are saying this is competition for crypto. I just think it's this lukewarm attempt to catch up, and I don't see it as being as beneficial as crypto is. But I'll throw this to the group and get your takes. Danny, what are your thoughts on this new pilot program?
I mean, it certainly has the potential to open up credit cards to a whole new just group of people that don't have it. In the report in the Wall Street Journal, it said 53 million Americans don't have traditional credit scores. And so there is a gigantic population out there that could find use in this. What I'm thinking about right now is what will happen if people with no credit scores who have bad credit histories, or who would possibly have bad credit histories, end up not paying back their debts, and they dig themselves into these gigantic debt holes. I don't know what's going to happen with all of that. I think that, I mean, it's not a good idea to just lock these people out of the credit system, but if you open the gates too quickly and you do it at the expense of people's personal data, it could be a dangerous mix.
Sounds kind of reminiscent of the housing crisis. Anyone? Subprime loans and mandates from Fannie and Freddie saying they have to keep putting out loans to more and more people, and they run out of people who are credit worthy, and suddenly you have this whole marketplace that is built on a house of cards. Yeah, I think it could possibly trigger some sort of collapse if it gets too large. I think it's definitely a fear.
I think on the surface level, they've come up with a solution for people who, let's say, are new to the country. I mean, I've lived in a different country before and didn't have access to credit just by the sole fact that I was a foreign person living there. And so I can see the use case. On the other hand, I'm curious to know how these institutions plan on protecting the data that they're going to share, because it feels like there are a lot of weak points that could be exploited in that kind of change of hands of the data. So I'm interested to see how this rolls out, but I do see the need for a solution in this area. I don't know what it is. I know that there is obviously DeFi, but I think the people who need this maybe aren't the people who are going to actively go out and find a solution in the world of DeFi. It feels like it might be a little bit complicated for them. Naomi?
So Jen, the article actually goes into how this data is going to be shared between banks. So Equifax is one of the companies that will be doing this. Does anyone remember a big Equifax scandal recently where suddenly everyone has the ability to make a claim with them because they leaked everyone's data? So yes, this is the organization that we will be entrusting all of this shared data to. Doesn't, ring alarm bells for me at all.
Yeah, it's a weird one. This report was interesting. I get the idea behind it, and that makes some sense. I think that also banks and credit card companies are a little bit notoriously predatory, particularly for people of lower income. And I think that's a really important thing. They talk about looking at people's bank accounts to determine financial responsibility, how many overdraft fees they charge, when in fact that's how banks make a ton of their money is on those overdraft fees. I think maybe a different solution here would be focused on, maybe raising the minimum wage in the US, curbing corporate entities that are underpaying people, like wage theft. Let's crack down on that too. So I think there are a lot of different solutions here that could go beyond sort of a greater data sharing mechanism. Naomi, you kind of hit it on the head with it. Just I prickle a little bit when we talk about all the different intermediaries that are going to be involved here. So I think there are other solutions that could be taken before this, but it's happening. So we're going to see where it goes. Okay, so I'm going to take us in a slightly different direction and focus on web browsers and the world of Web 3.0. So Brave, the popular privacy-oriented browser that is used by a lot of crypto people, has integrated .crypto blockchain domains into native support on their application. Now, previously they were offering the kind of ability to go to blockchain domains through Cloudflare, but this is sort of offering it natively in browser. Now, this is interesting in a variety of different ways. It kind of gets into the idea of an alternative DNS, like a domain name system, which is basically how we navigate the traditional internet. When you type in a domain, you're typing the domain, but that's redirecting you to an IP address where it resolves into the, lovely little web pages that we see. And this is sort of building out a way for us to do that on the decentralized web. Now, it kind of looks at, in these domains, .crypto domains can stand in for wallet addresses, long strings of alphanumeric characters, but also things like IPNS, which is a domain name system on the IPFS storage system, which is sort of immutable data storage. And so I think this is cool because we're seeing browsers that people use and are really focused on the user experience that we talk about a lot here, integrating ways to make the decentralized web more accessible to your everyday people. And that's how it gains mainstream adoption in a variety of ways. But I want to toss this out to the group. Jen, what are your thoughts here? We talk about the obstacles for people accessing crypto and accessing the decentralized world more generally. Do you think this could change that?
I think it could. Again, I think I don't know what it's going to take to get the mainstream audience to really understand the benefits and the value of this. But one thing that really stuck out for me is that we can all think about GoDaddy as a place where you go and register your domain names. And if you think about it in that sense, every year you have to renew your domain name. It can be taken away from you. There are all kinds of ways that system can be hacked. And in this scenario, you own your domain name. It is yours. It cannot be taken away from you. And I think that's a really great starting point to the conversation around why there's value behind this. So I think if we start there and with the education, then we can get somewhere. But I do think it's going to take a while for people to really see the value and transition all of their online activities over to Web3 apps.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't have to be like all the online activities, right? Like I think that's what's interesting about Brave is you can access the traditional web, but you can also access the decentralized web in one place. So you're kind of like meeting people where they are, and that's why browser support and Unstoppable Domains, which is the company kind of behind this, also recently integrated with Opera natively, another browser. So I think it's just kind of seeing the greater adoption from a browser perspective leads to a lot more people potentially entering the space. So these domains are basically NFTs that are stored in your wallet, and once you have it, like Jen said, you don't have to like pay a subscription fee like I might for any other number of domains that I want. But Jen, I want to toss this back to you. I saw your hand go up.
I just have a question. Does anyone on the panel know how many people use Brave in comparison to like a Safari or Chrome?
So Chrome has about like 75%, I believe, of the market share. It's really, really dominant. Brave does have a significant chunk. I think the main contenders are Microsoft Edge, Brave, Safari, another one, and they're kind of like the main browsers out there. But Chrome is dominant. Like until Chrome provides support for these .crypto addresses, you're going to have a website that most people aren't going to be able to access. That being said, I think Unstoppable Domains is really exciting. If we can figure out how to decentralize domain names, I think that's definitely a step forward because as you pointed out, these things can be seized at any time. I believe you still pay a subscription model in order to get these to Unstoppable Domains. So that's a clarifying point that we should make, but it definitely is leading to a more decentralized world. So it's a pretty exciting development to see the decentralized internet really start to take shape there.
Yeah, and I think Brave has about 30 million average monthly users. Maybe fact check me on that, but I believe that's the number that they talk about, which is greater adoption than some other browsers that we see that are more like privacy oriented or crypto based, for example. I just think this is really interesting. Like I like to nerd out about like standards bodies and like the IEEE and like all these other stuff. And I know like it's maybe not sexy to like a general audience, but these are like the ways that
make it sexy,
Ben. Like these are the ways that the internet is constructed, right? Like everything that we touch online like has all of this back end stuff that makes that somewhat convenient and seamless. And we talk about like sort of DeFi and TradFi and like these parallel financial structures that are being built out around crypto. Like this is the flip side of that, right? Like this is the flip side of an entirely new internet that's being built out, and like the adoption of things like ENS and Unstoppable Domains and having those like naming systems that make it easy to navigate to a wallet or to like a blockchain based website. Like if those get adopted, that starts to again realize that promise. So like to me, when I'm thinking about the promises of decentralization more generally, these are like these little data points that we talk about in the world of finance that are happening on the flip side. And so the more adoption we see, the more viable something alternative and new and novel becomes. And I think this ecosystem simultaneously has to grow for that financial system to grow. And so to see it be fleshed out, I think is personally really exciting. But that's why I like care about standards and interoperability and all these little different points. But Zach, I want you to weigh in here on this one so I don't just like, nerd out on DNS and things like that.
We love the nerd out.
Well, we should nerd out some more, but we also should probably wrap the show. I'm getting word that we should shut it down. I think Danny may have even frozen, so that's a bummer too.
Yeah,
he's just riveted by my rant.
Again. Look at him! Wow, he's dumbfounded. He's just
he's thinking about DNS.
Speechless.
Yeah.
All right, well,
frozen in shock.
The sexiness from that last nerd out really just got to him.
Danny Nelson filling in for us today. Did a great job. Danny, don't blink if you think I'm really cool and the best editor. Okay, awesome. Sweet. All right, great. Thanks for doing that. Naomi, Ben, Jen, hey, it's Zach. We'll do this again tomorrow. And I hope you have a nice Thursday. And thanks for tuning in.
All right.
See ya.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye, guys.